Hello everyone and welcome to episode 3 of the Racing with Rob and Roller podcast. I am Rob Peters and I'm joined by Josh Roller. We are glad to have you back for this week's installment of our podcast. Today we will be discussing the NASCAR weekend at Pocono Raceway, IndyCar's duel in Detroit race weekend. Before we get started though, make sure to follow us on Twitter. We've got Josh Roller here. He is at roller_01, ROLLER_01. And for me, I am at RPEETERS33. So before we go any further on more introductions about ourselves, let's go ahead and start talking about the NASCAR weekend in Pocono. We've got a lot to talk about today on this show, so get ready for it. We're ready. So NASCAR weekend in Pocono, I was able to catch it. Josh, you were a little bit more spotty on that, but we're going to talk about it. We're going to start with the ARCA race that happened, I believe, on Friday. Mm-hmm. Yep. General Tire 200. 18 cars started the event, which surprised me considerably because I looked at that and I was looking at the pylon on the TV, and I was like waiting. I was like, okay, are they gonna show more cars? Like, where's who running? And then I quickly realized there's only 18 cars in this race. I was a bit surprised about that, and according to Racing Reference, this is the smallest ARCA field at Pocono since July 20th, 1991, when 26 cars were entered, so this is substantially less. Only one caution on Friday meant that only 4 cars finished the race on the lead lap, which is a very large throwback to 70s and 60s style racing.
Yes.
And 1 year ago, 30 cars were in the race, and 18 cars finished on the lead lap, following 7 cautions for 38 of the 80 laps. So that leads us to this question, Josh. Do you think ARCA still belongs at Pocono?
Honestly, I look back in a couple of these races, I want to say no. I know a lot of traditional ARCA people are going to say, yeah, we need to be going there, but I don't think there's enough good teams to keep a strong field going and to have enough cars finish on the lead lap and then close enough to the lead lap if you have a long green flag race or a majority green flag race, because last year, like you mentioned, half the race was run under caution, so that doesn't give a whole lot of time, a number of laps for the leader to go around and lap you. And I think we see there's only 8 competitive cars out there. Venturini just dominates that series, and so I don't think ARCA is does belong there. It doesn't, but they probably will continue to go there for a few more years.
I think that's accurate. Personally, I've always enjoyed ARCA at Pocono because I feel like ARCA on a big track is always a recipe for either hilarious disasters or, a pretty decent race. So it's...
So what would you classify this as? A hilarious or a disaster or what? I mean, this 4 cars.
It's a hilarious disaster that is a horrible race. Obviously we only saw one caution, which was... and sometimes you're going to see that. There are going to be races that run with limited caution, limited attrition, things like that. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's when there's so many cars out there that just aren't competitive.
Yes.
And I don't know what it is about ARCA, but it seems like, that's been par for the course the past several years. I think there was a period of time in ARCA where, you knew Frank Kimmel was going to win, but you also thought that the majority of the racing was still pretty good.
Yeah.
So it's very disappointing. I feel like now there's really not a lot of support there for ARCA, and it can be very difficult, I think, personally, to maybe put on competitive shows, because the ARCA races I've been to in the past, you watch maybe the top 10 and they're good and competitive, but then everyone behind that, I've seen races at Lucas Oil Raceway and Salem Speedway that are good races, but there's only like 3 or 4 cars that are maybe even remotely close to that should win this race. And if something happens to them, like I've seen those races where something happens, like they have a tire go down, and they hit the wall, they scrape the wall or something like that, they make a mistake, and then all of a sudden, the race race becomes wide open, and anybody else can win it. So it becomes kind of entertaining that way. But even then, that's not how I want to see. I would like to see more drivers be able to get up there and compete for a win. So, I don't necessarily think it's going to be a race that's going to disappear from the ARCA schedule, unless that's what NASCAR wants them to do.
Well, and I think you got to ask the question: what do they do with going to only one Pocono weekend next year? And you're going to have, I mean, the potential for 5 races if ARCA continues to go there, because we already know that the Xfinity and Truck Series are going to be racing that weekend with the Cup Series and their doubleheader. So, do you want to run a 5th race there? And where does that 5th race, place on the schedule? So, to me, I almost say like there's a good out here, for this, and if the cars are more competitive. And there's just not enough teams that have enough money.
Really, there's not.
I mean, if you had Hendrick, Gibbs, and Penske fielding a couple cars,
or people with those support from
exactly,
those,
or like Kyle Busch Motorsports is down there. Yeah, there's potentially 10, 12 more cars there that make this series a little bit more. Unpredictable,
right?
Maybe would be the right word, because you don't know who would win. But now I think you can pick up like, okay, one of these 3 guys are going to win this week.
I think a lot of it too is because people don't view ARCA as a real stepping stone anymore. I think at one point,
it's been relegated. It's lower.
Yeah.
It's dropped, and it's now with the K&N side of things. And
I don't think that's right, because ARCA is a series that's supposed to get people ready for big ovals, but also giving them opportunities to hone and really understand their skills on a short oval as well.
Yeah.
It's really it's a series that's just made for young drivers, and you don't see young drivers using that series anymore, or veterans, or old veterans either. You really don't see any of that. You see drivers that kind of come and go, flame out, and sometimes they get to the Truck or Xfinity Series, but very seldom now do you see them moving up to Cup.
Yeah.
And you usually see drivers start in the Truck Series now, and I think that's a topic for another day. But I think that's one of the major flaws for ARCA is they don't have any real Cup backing, or they don't really have any drivers that have Cup backing and have sponsorship that are really talented. I mean, and that's not to take away from some of the drivers in ARCA that are talented, but I think there's a lot of drivers out there, as Kyle Busch said last week over the weekend, that his drivers in KBM are just not cutting it. He's like, I can go out here and beat the field by like 2-3 seconds, and you guys can't even finish in the top 10. Like, what is going on? Like, these cars are built to be the perfect trucks.
The best trucks.
Yeah, and they're not doing anything. So, I mean, I sit there and I think, imagine if some of those guys were in ARCA. I think that'd be a lot better for them. But anyway, we're going to move on to the Xfinity Series. We talked about that. The Xfinity Series was actually an interesting race. I was very surprised. I got a great opportunity to sit there and watch that. And, typically I think when the Xfinity Series first came to Pocono, I was a bit skeptical, because I was like, why? Why are we doing this? Why is NASCAR doing so many of these doubleheader weekends with Cup and Xfinity and trucks? Like, I don't like that.
Yeah, the companion weekend. No, too many companion weekends.
There's too many companion weekends, and I always felt like Pocono was just a Cup. Yeah, it was just a Cup track, and that's how I always felt it should have been. When the Truck Series went there, I thought it was interesting because it was a fast racetrack. The trucks drove a lot different than the Cup cars did. So I really wasn't as opposed to. Plus, it was a short sprint race. It was like about 150 miles or something. So it was a short race.
Yeah, it's only
And so I felt like that added more of an excitement aspect to it. But when the Xfinity race went there, it just seemed like, what's the point of this? Why are we doing this? Why? Does anybody want this? Did anybody ask for this? Do we need this? Why can't we just, replace this event with a short oval somewhere? But I know why we did that is because all of those tracks that we went to on the Pocono weekend don't exist anymore, or they've been shut down. Or something like that. I think about Nashville, Memphis, Pikes Peak,
Nazareth.
Things like that. Nazareth, yeah. All those tracks, they don't exist anymore. If tracks like that existed anymore, I think they wouldn't need to run Xfinity at Pocono, but they do anyway. But I'm not disappointed, because I was happy with the way that the finish was. I thought when it was a green-white checker, I was like, it's not going to do anything.
It capped
guy's
off.
Guy's gonna run away with it. That's what always happens. Reddick's going to run away with it, at least I felt.
Yeah, he should have. If he doesn't bobble in that last corner,
right.
I think he wins.
He made a mistake in the last corner, and it allowed Cole Custer to come home and take the win. So it didn't leave as sour of a taste in my mouth as maybe
And it did
races have in the past.
And it helped us not leave a sour taste in our mouth for the weekend because the
Yeah.
Cup Series was a little, it was Pocono. We can talk about that in a second. But, I was really, I've been shocked. Junior Motorsports only has one win this year, and that's with Michael Annett. But their teams are running well. They just haven't maybe had the best of luck, and Noah's learning these cars. Justin's had a couple bad breaks. But that 8 car is running really well with a mixture of drivers. And it's sometimes tough to tell. Is it the car? Is it the team? Or is it just the drivers coming in here and not there a week? We can't nail down the zero on the reason there.
I think that's more impressive, is to put a driver that's not regular in there and end up finishing better than some of your teammates.
Yeah, and it kind of almost regularly has. It seems like it's almost been the best running car. Doesn't matter who's in the car. So I'd be thinking, okay, what are they doing differently that we can help Justin Allgaier and really, Noah, because I know Junior wants to get his 3 full-time guys in the playoffs.
I think he shouldn't have an issue with that. I mean, I think there's still plenty of time in the series.
No doubt.
Especially now with the Cup guys not being in there so often, and I mean, but I think that also shows that there's a little bit of a flaw because you've got so many drivers winning that are the same exact drivers. I think Xfinity has a big problem in that it doesn't have a multitude. It doesn't when they first went to the playoff system. I was like, okay, this is fine. I was not entirely happy about it, but I was like, all right, that's fine. Let's have a uniform way of deciding the championship. That's fine. But I also believe that Xfinity has had a serious issue in that they can't produce, a multitude that as many winners as it might take to produce an exciting championship.
Well, and I think when you look at the drivers who are finishing, you think it's just that Stewart Haas and Joe Gibbs are just that step ahead of everyone, and Junior's right there too, maybe a step back. But you got a number of young guys. I look at Austin Cindric, Justin Haley, John Hunter Nemechek. Those are guys who, if they can be a little bit more consistent on track, they might crank out a couple wins there. And when you look at Cindric could have won a couple races last year, and we say you get that first win, all of a sudden a couple more come, and your confidence builds. I think Cindric's 4th in the standings right now, so he's got a car capable of winning. We know he does with Team Penske. That car has won with Brad and Joey and Ryan in the past. So, I think we'll see a few more winners this year. I don't know if we'll see a number of multiple race winners like we have with Custer and Reddick and Bell this year, or with the regulars anyways. Kyle Busch is going to be tough to beat whenever he's in there, as well as Keselowski and Logano when they drive the 12 car.
Yeah, and definitely speaking about Kyle Busch, we're going to move on here real quick to the Pocono 400 that was on Sunday. I mean, many of you listening right now obviously can't tell my setup, but I have 2 televisions in my room, so I had Cup going on one television and then the IndyCar race going on the other, and I just felt like the NASCAR race was again another dropped ball for NASCAR in this package. But I'm not gonna get into that right away. I'm gonna start off by saying Kyle Busch picks up his career win number 55, tied for 9th with Hall of Famer Rusty Wallace. The next driver that Kyle Busch is going after will be Dale Earnhardt, which will be, if that happens, I say in the next, oh Lord, how long? I don't know how long it's going to take.
I think he's got the potential to do it in the next 2 years if he keeps going at the pace he's going.
You think that is right?
Well,
I was going to give him 5 years, maybe 5 or 6.
Well, he's got it all this year, and he's got 36 races over the next 2 years. And, talking about 20 wins there. Yeah, good. You got to stay on top of your game, and Gibbs has got to stay on top. But he's got a potential.
There's no doubt that Kyle Busch is striding, has been hitting a stride since 2008. Really, it's actually surprising that he only has one championship to his name, and but that championship still that he has was probably, and people can argue about it and say it wasn't fair and it wasn't right and it wasn't this and that. But I think if that's just how the rules are, you play into the rules, and they say, yeah, okay, we'll let you go for a championship if you win a race and you do this and
you
that.
Make the top 30.
Yeah, and he's like, all right, okay, I'll do that.
Yeah, and
he went out and did it, and he won the championship. Adversity struck him in the beginning, and it would have been easy to write him off. But I think that, if anything, is like Hollywood movie-esque you have this dramatic accident, you break both your legs
miss 12 races.
Miss 12 races and then come back and still win the championship. So, and I think it's just, we could sit here and debate on this program as many programs do, as many bloggers, as many, talking heads, whatever they want to talk about. We talk about the chase, we talk about this and this is this. Whatever, I don't care. The chase is the chase. It's here. The playoffs are the playoffs. They're here to stay. I don't think they're going to get rid of them anytime soon because for sponsorship reasons. And a lot of people don't understand why we have the chase either. It's because we had this massive problem where the last 10 or so races of the series didn't matter because we had crowned a champion by with 5 races to go usually. Why are we running these last 5 races? We still got to sell tickets.
It wasn't so much why are the fans were like, we want to watch the race, but the track promoters, why am I promoting this?
Right, and
I
sponsors
want to promote a winner.
too.
It became a difficult selling point.
And those races ended up just quite honestly not mattering for anybody.
Yeah.
Unless you were fighting to get into say the top 35 or something, or at the time, however. You got
top 10. You got the extra prize money.
Yeah,
that's
maybe that
was like for the owners.
That was definitely an incentive. But I think for drivers, then it just all those races just became glorified test sessions, and I think we started to see more teams entering third cars or extra cars for development drivers because they knew, okay, this race doesn't matter for us. We've got resources. Let's just use them for this guy and get him a start or something, and let's have him not do anything. And nobody really did anything. Yeah. So, but I'm not. That's not what I'm talking about. But we are talking about Pocono. Kyle Busch obviously winning. Let's see. Chase Elliott now is 3rd overall in the standings.
Now that's the regular standings before the reset. The reset he's 6th, but I think some people that's part of the sport now that we forget is the regular standings and all the points.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that team's struggled a little bit at the beginning, as well as the rest of Chevrolet and Hendrick. But I think I mentioned it last week, and maybe even in our first show. Chevrolet has slowly crept back into the picture recently, and particularly Hendrick Motorsports. Jimmy Johnson is still the 4th guy at the stable right now because you have Bowman and Byron running so well. Byron picked up his 3rd top 10 in 4 races. He had a 20th at Kansas, and Bowman's streak of top 10s came to an end. Those teams are clicking.
Mm-hmm.
They found something, and whatever in this package and whatever they got the Camaro body down. My thing was last year, why is the Camaro struggling? I said they built the car to go through the old tech system, so they had the cheats through. Here's where we can beat the system in here, and this is where we'll get our little advantages that will give us those couple tenths. Well, then NASCAR throws this this optical scanning system at them, and they go, well, crap. We can't make a new car now.
Mm-hmm.
We got to live with this, and this has kind of been last year was a complete mulligan for them, and trying to develop, and now they've had a year underneath their belts, and Hendrick has been resilient, and I think we're going to see them win a couple more races this year.
Absolutely.
I think I had to see more, but I do think Chevrolet has got their mojo back a little bit, and along with the Chip Ganassi racing. We've seen Richard Childress racing run pretty good this year as well. Hendrick has had not the finishes he's deserved, and as well as Austin Dillon. And you see the JTT Daugherty cars up there too. So Chevrolet.
Chris Buescher is having a great season so far.
The wins and who has won may not show parity, but I think there's more parity this year than there was last year for sure.
Oh, absolutely. And if you recall in our last podcast, I did actually pick a Hendrick car to win the race. That didn't happen, but Chase Elliott to finish 4th I thought was really good. Was a really good sign of things to come. And plus, William Byron was on the pole, so I was almost close. I was I kind of had a feeling.
He held his own.
Yeah, and William Byron, I think, is good. I mean, he's got Chad Knaus under his belt, so I think at some point they're going to be able to pull off a win just by Chad's genius alone.
Yeah.
But
and I think he surprised people. Came from iRacing, started at 15 years old
on a computer.
But he's a good driver, and I think the biggest problem with yesterday's or Sunday's race was that the package failed.
Yes, it did.
And what we talked about last week, the tires aren't good. There was not a whole lot of fall off. You couldn't pass. The corner speeds were high. Guys were going full throttle through turn 2, the tunnel turn. You don't do that. I mean, you shouldn't be able to do that. Obviously, you can do that based off yesterday with stock cars.
Kind of tells me that if they were going full throttle through the tunnel turn, what are we going to see when we get to Indianapolis in September? Are they going to be able to go almost full throttle through there too?
Well, the good news is you're going to have another Pocono race.
Yes.
And so hopefully they can fix that. And I'm hoping that NASCAR will be like, and they've shown they're willing to tweak stuff. The one thing that I would say that would concern me, but if you let people know ahead of time, to me that's fair. Mm-hmm. It is obviously the regular season finale race this year, so they don't want to make things too complicated, but we also want to put on a good product of racing. So let's talk to the teams, talk about it. I think Goodyear needs to bring a tire that will fall off more, have handling issues that can solve the issue. I don't have grip, so I can't go full speed through this corner, or I can't blurp the gas. And I can't go full throttle through the tunnel turn because I'm going to lose and I'm going to hit that wall, and that's not fun to do.
That's what's supposed to happen every time. Yeah, I mean, if you go through full throttle through the tunnel turn, you're supposed to hit the wall. Yeah. Physics dictates you're going to hit the wall, but for some reason we've got a situation where cars aren't generating enough horsepower. They got too much downforce in the car, and they're just ripped flying through there like it's an IndyCar or something.
And I think exactly, and it's almost like, I hate to use this term, I've heard it from a few people, slot cars. Yeah. I don't like that because it's so derogatory, but it's accurate at the same time.
That's what it feels like.
And yeah, there's no the restarts became even more critical at Pocono than ever before because you had to make ground up going into the turn one.
Right.
You that's the only way you were really going to pass unless the guy in front of you, like we saw Chase Elliott early in the race, was really tight and off of turn 3, and people were able to pass him. But what were your thoughts on? We're going to a doubleheader next year.
Yeah.
With Pocono, I thought thinking to myself, this race would be a whole lot more entertaining if it's 50 or 100 miles shorter.
Yeah, I think if we're going to go to a doubleheader, it has to be shorter. And the reason, and I'm actually going to say that because I think the most entertaining Pocono races, because Pocono, I like Pocono for different reasons. It doesn't generate the most exciting races, and I don't think that's what it's supposed to do. No. Pocono is supposed to be a track that's a challenge for drivers to maneuver.
And teams to set up and get all 3 corners right.
It's hard. You have 3 completely different corners. You have 3 really long straightaways. It's supposed to be hard to save fuel there, too. It's supposed to be hard to save your tires. I think pit strategy races that come down to fuel mileage, tire management, things like that are the most entertaining Pocono races because it really shows you where the talent level of the drivers is, because anybody can just hold it full throttle and go through the turns and not have a care in the world, but it takes the best drivers to save their tires, to save fuel, maneuver Pocono, and still be fast, because anybody can maybe do that, but they won't be as fast. But it takes the best drivers, and I think Kyle Busch demonstrated that probably as better than most people, but unfortunately he didn't have to. He didn't have to demonstrate his abilities to race. All you're doing is putting the throttle down and going, and especially when you get a caution late in the race like that, when it throws fuel mileage and pit strategy completely out of the window, then that's when I think we got a dull race. Because in NASCAR, too, they make all of this hype over just how exciting and close together the restarts are. Well, yeah, but by the time the cars get back around for the second lap, I mean, nobody cares. I mean, they're all strung out again.
In NASCAR's defense on that one, what this package has done, it has kept the cars a little more compact, compact, but the passing hasn't been there. That's a combination thing. That's not just a package. Like we mentioned, that's the tires. But with Pocono, I call Indianapolis a champions track.
Yeah.
The best win there. And really the best you win at Pocono just because of the design of the track and the things you mentioned with fuel mileage. I think if you have a shorter race, I think NASCAR, I'm fine with certain things being different at tracks. If they want to say we're going to go to a smaller fuel cell so runs are shorter and we have tires that fall off to match that. I mean, Pocono, I think a really good Pocono race, you should see about 3 to 4 seconds of fall off from the time you run that first lap, by the time you're screaming for tires at the end of your fuel run.
Right.
And we didn't see that again this week. Now, last week we talked about tire failures, and there was some fall off at Charlotte, but there wasn't enough, and there wasn't enough to cause tire failures on their own and cars pushing it. It was more so the setup of the car.
Yeah.
So
I think that's something that that NASCAR needs to work on, because I mean, it's cool to see cars all packed and bunched up together like that, but if by the time they come around the second lap they're spread out by a second each, well, who cares?
And I think, the leaders are going to naturally get spread out.
Yeah.
But the pack 7 through 25th-ish,
that shouldn't be spread out as quickly as it is, because I think you have this problem where these cars, they create this bubble where, you just can't get within.
Well, look what Cole Custer did.
Yeah.
In the Xfinity race, he got right up to who was that? Allgaier.
Yeah.
And just in Allgaier got loose, and what Cole Custer do? Drove on by. That's the way it's supposed to work. And you, like you said, you can't get up to a guy to get them because you're so stuck to the ground. You have this huge airless hole that's not there, and you can't get up to them. I think this package was designed to do, and the problem I think it is just so stuck to the ground. There's so much downforce, and you don't need to have 1,000 horsepower or 750 horsepower to put on a good show.
No,
but you need to have the aero package that complements wherever you're at with your
You used to be able to pass in NASCAR. It used to be easy to pass. All you had to really do was get right up on their rear bumper and spoiler, and then that would take all the air off the roof spoiler, and it would allow you to just get the guy just a little bit loose, not loose enough to wreck him, but just a little bit loose so that he's uncomfortable, and then that's how you were able to complete the pass. That's how it was supposed to work. And now, doing that yields nothing. You can get all the way on that guy's back bumper till the towels come home. You can push him down a straightaway, but God help you, if you're trying to get into that turn, you just can't make the pass. And that, I think, is what causes so many drivers to be so frustrated with this package, is they just can't do that. I hear Kyle Busch all the time, and he even said to the media, he was like, don't ask me about the package anymore.
No,
I've told you what it's like. It sucks. Mm-hmm. I've told you multiple times. It sucks.
He got mad at a guy who probably wasn't at another race this year, though. I think the guy was from the Pocono, somewhere in Pennsylvania. It probably had not been in a NASCAR race. But
I think about that.
Reference my previous comment.
Well, and I think when you're in a situation like that, I think if you're working for a paper, and this is just me being a media guy, if you're working for a local paper like that, I feel very strongly like you're more inclined to ask a question like that.
Absolutely.
So I don't blame that guy for asking the question.
That's Bob Pockrass or Kelly Crandall.
Right, if you're covering the sport regularly, like for me personally, when I go cover the Brickyard, the first thing that's going to be on my mind in press conference is what do you guys think about the package? That was the first thing when they had the Xfinity, the first time they threw the Xfinity package on there. First thing that went through my mind in the press conferences was, what do you think about the package? Does it favor the driver, or does it just create this kind of pseudo good looking racing, but in reality it's so much more difficult. Or it's so much harder to pass, or you're dealing with some of these things. That's what I want to know, because that's what I'm writing. I'm writing to my audience, and my audience is fans of, say, Pocono Raceway, or fans of Indianapolis. Some people can criticize the media for asking questions like that, but when you are writing for a paper or a publication or a website or whatever that's local, that's what people want to know, because then they want to know is,
how's my home track doing?
Yeah, is it worth me to come out and see this race again? What is it going to be worth my time to come out here and see this if this is what the drivers are saying? So I don't know. That's just my feeling about it.
Pocono hopefully will be, but they'll go back, look at the race, and they'll say, what can we do to tweak the package to make the August race a little bit better, and then therefore, because we're going to learn a few things from this track for sure. Mm-hmm. How can we make the 400, the Brickyard 400 in September as entertaining as possible?
I think too, if something that they're going to do is, if they're going to go to the doubleheader, and if they're going to shorten, if they do decide to shorten the races, what they should do is make it so that, because we've seen this before, and I felt like it didn't work well at all, but when they had those heat races at the Xfinity Series,
I don't want to see
Dash for Cash. No, I'm not saying that, but I'm saying those races were poor, were terrible. What they need to do is make sure that the races go just a little bit over, say, the fuel window, the projected fuel window. Like, say, if a fuel window is, say, 20 laps, mm-hmm. What we need to do is make sure, say, if it's, 100 laps or something, mm-hmm. make sure that the final fuel window is between lap 80 to 100. Yeah. Because then that's going to give us probably one of the best opportunities mm-hmm. To see a good finish, to see a good race, to see that kind of fuel mileage. But obviously you can't you can't predict what's going to happen. So if a caution comes out like in the last couple of laps, it's not going to help anything. But I do think that if you shorten it, make sure that it's short enough so that it's difficult to make it the last stint on a fuel run. So that we can make sure that even if the race is pretty poor, we can at least show off what Pocono is good at and make these doubleheader weekends difficult for the driver, make them want to make them have to work for it. Make them have to save fuel, save tires in order to win this thing. So with that being said, we're going to move on now to our featured paint scheme of the week. And Josh picked this one out as he does every week, and I love it. I love the featured paint scheme, talking about the featured paint scheme. So Josh, why don't you tell us about your featured paint scheme from the 2001 NASCAR Busch Series?
This one, I randomly picked a year in a series, let's 2001 Busch Series.
Oh, hey, that's a good season for the Busch Series,
yes,
I've always said.
Yes, and I was like, what could be a paint scheme? And the first thing that came to my mind was NASCAR Thunder 2002. The first NASCAR video game I ever owned. And
got that over there somewhere.
There you go. And the career mode, one of the cars I think came up first was the 21 Rockwell Automation Chevrolet for Richard Childress Racing, driven by Mike Dillon. And
Mike Dillon. Yeah, that's a name I haven't heard in a long time.
Yeah, and for those of you who don't know, Mike is the father of Austin and Ty Dillon, Cup Series drivers. When I was researching this, I forgot that Mike Dillon had been hurt so early in that year. He was involved in a crash at Bristol. Originally thought it wasn't going to be as bad, just missed a race or two, and then he finally said, I'm going to go ahead and hang up the fire suit for good here. Like I said, that was at Bristol. He just T-boned right into the 10 of Jeff Green. So it was a huge pileup too, huge wreck. The RCR split the driver duties with Mike Skinner, Robbie Gordon, Johnny Sauter, Jeff Purvis, and Ted Christopher and Travis Quaffle for the remainder of the year. And Purvis even won in that car at Pikes Peak in the Napa Auto Care.
Yes, that was a big deal. I remember.
Yeah, Napa Auto Care 250. That was on July 28th. He led 121 laps that day. And, that was mine. That was a tough one, though, because there's a couple good paint schemes from that year. What's yours?
Well, I would have also noticed that fun fact about that series and that race, first race that the Busch Series had at Kentucky, which I believe was in 2001, Travis Quappel ended up flipping his car in that race.
Yeah.
That the race he was in for Mike Dillon, too. He flipped the 21 car over, so that was kind of interesting. But my featured paint scheme... unfortunately, we're also going to be talking about a car where someone was injured in. We
did not plan that.
We didn't plan that. We did not plan this. I made the decision prior to even really thinking about it off the top of my head. But my favorite is the Steve Park number 31 Whelan Chevrolet that he ran for a couple of races in 2001. And the reason why I picked that one out was because even though it was a part-time car, it only ran maybe about a handful of races. I feel like that still is such an iconic paint scheme in itself because it's still run by Action Express in IMSA. It's a very, very iconic paint scheme, and Steve Park has always been one of my personal favorites to watch. When Steve Park was racing, I always thought he was the coolest guy because he was the third DEI guy. Everybody gave all the attention to Dale Jr. and Michael Waltrip, and Steve Park never got. I feel like it's always lost in the shadows that Steve Park won Rockingham 2001. I feel like for some reason people remember Michael Waltrip's win, they remember Dale Jr.'s win, both of them at Daytona, but then I feel like they just forget that Steve Park won at Rockingham the week after Dale Earnhardt passed away, and I feel like that is something that...
It was a big moment.
It was a big moment. Steve Park played such a big... And I feel like he doesn't get nearly enough... I feel like, down the road, not obviously right now, but I think down the road... maybe in, say, 10 or 15 years, I think this is my personal opinion, I think Steve Park is someone who we should be looking at for the NASCAR Hall of Fame, not just because of his accomplishments in NASCAR. I mean, he's a race winner. He's one of the few drivers at the time. He was one of the first drivers to win in all three major series, when he won in trucks, Busch, and Cup. And not to mention, he did so much for K&N East. or whatever it was called at the time, racing there. He's done tons of stuff in modifieds. I mean, he's been a NASCAR driver.
He's been a race car driver his whole life.
Yeah, he's one of the best at it, I think. And he made that bizarre comeback at 2010 at Daytona for Tommy Baldwin Racing that nobody saw coming.
Yeah.
But I still think that was really cool. I loved watching Steve Park that day. Steve Park was a great guy, and I just wanted to highlight one of his paint schemes, and highlight not only Steve Park, but also highlight the paint scheme itself, because it was such a classic and historical paint scheme. Yeah. So now that our featured paint scheme is over, we're gonna switch here into upshift, downshift.
Tell us how we do that.
Yeah, the most anticipated moment for us. It's not as popular as, say, Query and Schultz's Buy It or Bull Schultz, but I still think it's a pretty popular section for me. So what we do is you're presented with a hypothetical situation, or you're presented with a question of some kind, and you are asked to either you're gonna upshift in top gear, or you're gonna downshift, and you're gonna say, no, I don't like that. You're agreeing or disagreeing with the statement being made. So with our first upshift or downshift question of the day, we're going to ask Josh. I'm going to ask Josh real quick here. Joe Gibbs won its 9th race of the season on Sunday with Kyle Busch. There have been 14 races there so far in this season. Team Penske had 4 victories, and Hendrick Motorsports has a single victory. At this point last year, 5 organizations had won, with Stewart-Haas Racing having the most with 6.
For me, on the casual fan side, I think it's a huge downshift. On the I upshift in the sense that it's nice to see a team doing that well, but overall, where the sport is right now, I got a downshift. We need to see a little bit more teams winning, but you can't discount what they're doing.
I think I'm gonna downshift with you as well. I think one of my most disappointing things, I feel like the moment I'm most disappointed with overall a NASCAR season is when we get a repeat winner so quickly. I prefer, I don't mind repeat winners later in the season. I don't mind guys hitting their stride, say, in summer. But I think at the beginning of the season, I'd like to see more teams trying things out. Because I feel like, in the beginning of the season, it's really your best opportunity to kind of just throw caution into the wind. Because if you win the race, then you're set for the rest of the season.
And that's
you
so
don't have
true.
to worry about
That's
anything.
so true in today.
Right.
You can't do that 20 years ago.
You could do that 20 years ago, and that was when, I think about 2000, I think that race started with almost 10, 11, 12 different winners the first race of the season, and now 2019 we're lucky to maybe get 5, and I think that's a major issue. I would like to see, and I don't mind seeing all those teams win. Like, if Team Penske wins all the time, that's fine. I just would like to see it be different. I'd like to see Joey Logano win one, Ryan Blaney win one, Paul Menard win one, and then Brad Keselowski win one. I'd like to see something like that. Hendrick Motorsports, I'd like to see William Byron win one, Jimmy Johnson win one, Alex Bowman win one, things like that. Chase Elliott obviously win one. That would be very popular for everybody. Even Gibbs, it's come on, Eric Jones has got to win one eventually. Stewart-Haas. When is Daniel Suarez going to get that win that I've been waiting for forever?
I know Suarez is coming. That one's coming.
Suarez needs... I can't wait till Suarez gets a win, because I think that'll be a hugely popular win.
Yeah.
But, that's the thing that it's like, I don't mind seeing these super teams go out there and dominate. I mind when it's the same guy. Like, I mind that it's only Kyle Busch winning for Joe Gibbs. And maybe Denny Hamlin wins here and there.
Mark Truex has 3 of those wins.
Yeah.
So I think...
But where is Truex most of the time? I mean, he won last week, but that was because he was after hitting the wall. But, what did Truex do this past weekend? I mean, he was kind of like a field filler.
He dropped out because he had an engine failure.
Yeah, that's... Come on.
But he was running at the top, too.
He's not being consistent. He's not consistent where he needs to be. I'd like to see Truex, Hamlin, Jones, and Busch be running in the top 5 if that's going to happen. If Gibbs is going to run away with the series, I want to see all 4 of their drivers run away with the series. That's just my feeling. I want to see more different winners. I don't mind team domination. I don't mind super teams. That's not what I'm concerned about. I'm concerned about when it's just a handful of guys winning.
Yeah.
I'm concerned when we only see Kyle Busch, Martin Truex, Brad Keselowski, Kevin Harvick, and who else? That's it. That's really the only guys that win week in and week out, it feels like, anymore. And it's like, well, when is Kyle Larson going to get a win? When is Chase Elliott going to win one? When is Kurt Busch going to win one? Those could be such popular. Those are the kinds of things I feel like, because you have all these great drivers, all these talented drivers in top-tier equipment. Daniel Suarez, Eric Jones, guys like this. When are they going to start winning? I want to see them win and match the performance of their teammates, because I know they've done it. They've done it in the past.
Yeah.
Eric Jones and Daniel Suarez have both handedly beaten Kyle Busch head-to-head.
Yep.
I want to see him do it again. Quite honestly. So that's why I downshift for that. I think that's one of the main problems with the sport right now is there's not enough diversity. You have so many drivers in really good equipment, but only a handful of drivers are winning.
I just think some of those teams they can put 95% of a race together. Mm-hmm. It's that last 5%, like Suarez. He's had a couple good runs this year, but he can't get up there. And sometimes that's just like, I need another restart. Mm-hmm. If we pit, I get 4 tires here. I can go out there and get that. So sometimes the circumstances don't line up completely, but I like we said, we both have said we downshifted on this. We need to see a little bit more parity, a couple more drivers winning and teams being involved. And while it looks great and it's good to see success, when we compare it to like Formula One and Mercedes and what they've done this year, 6 races, 6 wins, and
right.
in the first 5 or 1-2 finishes. That's good for Formula One in some ways. I think some people enjoy that. Over here, and what we're trying to do and trying to rebound, and we're in this transitional period, and it's more of a restructuring, a resetting. We need to see a couple more teams winning. So what's the next one?
The next question is going to be one that I already know the answer to for myself, but I'm going to ask you. IndyCar should actively pursue finding another venue, oval, road course, or street course to have an additional dual race weekend. Upshift or downshift on that one?
I'm going to pull a you. I'm going to upshift into high gear.
Yes!
And I it's so cool because they're short races. Yeah, in Detroit this past weekend, they were not sprints, but they weren't too awfully long either. And it's just so cool to see 2 races. It gives the fans who travel to the town a little bit more bang for the buck. Mm-hmm. And it's something I just thought about.
Plus, you get an IMSA race too.
Yeah, that's true. I don't know how the ticket situation works for Belle Isle and some tracks, and don't know how it will work for Pocono next year. I actually did think they did say that you're going to buy 2 separate tickets. But nonetheless,
that seems awful.
That does seem awful. But maybe they'll change their mind. I don't know.
Give a guy a discount, you know?
But you get, and that might happen if you buy packages.
IMS had it right, when they had the Super Weekend, and they said, all right, we got Cup, Xfinity, and IMSA. You could buy 1 ticket to go see all of them. Why is Pocono not doing that?
Well, maybe they're, I don't know. But what you have is... you just get more bang for your buck, particularly when you talk about the travel and hotel side. You get to see 2 races instead of practice on Friday, qualifying and practice on Saturday, and then a race on Sunday.
You get 2 qualifying sessions too.
Yeah, you get 2 qualifyings. You get 3 days really of action-packed stuff, and like you said, if it's with, like an IMSA, or even if it's like Trans Am or SCCA, you can get a couple more races in there.
Trans Am was more popular than it is right now.
To get more bang for your buck with the travel side. So absolutely, I like to see another street course or 2 on there as well. So I think those make a really good dual races. I think I know your answer based off of your reaction.
Yeah, I'm obviously hard upshift on that one, but I don't think it should be an oval. I don't think IndyCar should do double headers on ovals because I think we've seen that in the past, and it's kind of controversial. It's not exactly the most... I don't know how to put it. It's not exactly... It's not exactly the most logistic thing. I think about what happened the last time we tried this at Texas in 2011.
Yeah.
But of course that was run on the same night. That was 2 races run on the same night, and they drew for starting positions, and obviously that was a big issue because then Dario Franchitti someone, I think it was Franchitti, led the whole race at the beginning, and then drew a poor starting position, and then because the car was set up to run in clean air, he could do absolutely nothing, and they could not make adjustments on the car the whole night to fix the car, and it just became a bad race for Franchitti when, we saw him win the first race, but then the second race he couldn't do anything. I don't want to see something like that, but I would love a return to the dual format. at Toronto.
Yeah, that'd be good.
That was one of my.
At the very least, it's the least they could do. If they don't have another venue, they could.
Yeah, because Toronto is a wonderful street circuit. It's probably one of my top 5 favorite street circuits in the world, and I think that it was a great choice to have them run a doubleheader weekend there. But I'd like to see a little bit more. I think if they choose a new venue, I'd like to see like 3 doubleheaders again. I'd like them to do it in Detroit, do one at Toronto, and then choose another one somewhere else.
I thought a good place to do a duel, well, somewhere in New York area. Like, what about if they were able to get a street course in the Meadowlands around where the Giants and the Jets play, or if they were to maybe even explore the possibility of doing that Port Imperial circuit that Formula One looked at a few years ago. I don't know I can't remember quite how the circuit looks. It's been a while since I've seen the track image, but a good dual event in the New York City skyline.
I think about that too. If they expanded or maybe like upgraded the current Formula E track in New York, so that it would.
That's a very tight area in Brooklyn.
That's the thing, though.
It's not a whole lot of space.
It is a tight track, and I said like if it was possible to maybe expand the racetrack a little bit, expand it a little bit so that it's more suited for IndyCars. That would be an option as well. But I just think it should be on a street course or something like that. But all right, our next question has been a very interesting one that I've been reading about in the news.
It's just fun to read on Twitter.
Oh, some of the reactions to this have been interesting. Hybrid engines were a major topic this past week for NASCAR fans. Representatives from all 3 manufacturers seem to think that is a good idea and will take place sometime down the line. Do positives for bringing hybrid engines in, such as possible attraction of younger, green-conscious millennials, outweigh the negatives of irritating traditional fans? What is your take?
Well, what is NASCAR needing right now? More
young fans. Motorsports in general desperately needs more young fans.
Yes.
Every time I see someone who works in motorsports, I feel like I always talk to them and they say, "Wow, I can't believe a young guy actually cares about this."
Yeah, and this points to the fact, that these traditional older fans, and I'm like this too. I'm an old soul. Mm-hmm. I like. Here go by. When the first time you hear one light up, it's an amazing feeling. And I remember the first race I was at Michigan, we were pretty close to the fence, and you can feel it vibrating in your chest. Your ears are ringing. It's great, but we need to attract those younger fans. I think this isn't happening in 21, by what I gather from, particularly with what David Wilson of Toyota Racing said. I don't think this is going to happen in 21. We're looking at something maybe a few more years down the line. But what are also the manufacturers doing? They want to have all hybrid cars. Yeah. That's what they want. So while I think the 500 horsepower engine is going to allow a hybrid engine definitely to creep in a little bit quicker, but the Gen 7 car is also being designed to be flexible. What can we change about things? We didn't really mention it in here today, but NASCAR's reportedly talked to Dallara about making parts that are universal for everyone. We don't have custom-made parts.
That was yesterday, I believe.
I did see that yesterday. So the hybrid engines, I think it's a good upshift.
Yeah.
And the reason is we need to attract these younger fans. The car culture is no longer the same as it was in the 80s. Mm-hmm. It's not. Nowhere close to it. I like cars, but I can't work on one.
No, me neither.
But there's people who are our age and younger and a little older who I drive a car because I have to. I could care less about what it is. For me, I know what I'm going to drive. Sorry, I'm not supposed to be biased, but I'm going to drive a GM my entire life.
Yeah.
I won't drive anything else. So that's about the extent of my car culture there. So it's an upshift for me because I think it can lead to bringing in new those fans who are like, I don't like it because they're gasoline guzzlers, but they're using hybrid engines. I think I might take a look at this. So what are your thoughts?
How
are you shifting?
I'm going to upshift again too, because I think in order for motorsports to continue being a viable business, in order for motorsports to continue to survive, the industry as a whole to continue to survive, you have to move towards technology. And I think one of the main issues and problems that I've been frustrated with is I look back, you look back 50 years. 50 years ago at where motorsports was. What were people doing? They were trying all different kinds of different technology.
Yep.
You had turbine engines, you had front engines, rear engines, all these different kinds.
You had crazy wings.
Right, crazy wings, all this stuff. Technology drives motorsports.
And there's that. So you're going at like innovation is lacking, maybe?
Yes, innovation has been lacking. I loved one of the things that I loved about the IndyCar era was the ability when they went to aero kits, because that was innovation. That was something different. You saw different manufacturers be able to innovate and create something that fit better with their engine, that made better gas mileage, did something like that. I want to see that. I want to see teams trying different things, and I want to see NASCAR go in a direction where, because we're seeing so many hybrid cars being made today, if you want to still win on Sunday, sell on Monday, you have to have something to sell on Monday. Mm-hmm. And if you don't have the same car to sell on Monday, if people don't go out there and say, holy cow, hybrid cars are really good now. Like, look how fast hybrid... Like, if NASCAR goes out there, puts together a hybrid engine that ends up being faster, because we've seen this. Formula One went to hybrid engines, and they went faster immediately. Mm-hmm. IndyCar has gone to is trying... Their current formula is a lot faster. We already saw, not even with the boost, but just straight up by itself. It's faster than what they were running with a naturally aspirated, regular old engine, Mm-hmm. That just came right out of a car. Now you go to this hybrid engines, the speeds get faster. I like sound. I like sound as much as the next guy, but I don't like going deaf.
Yeah.
Either. I don't like going deaf, and I think that
also kind of lies with a little bit of responsibility side too of the people.
Right, but even then, I loved 2012 Indy 500 for a couple of reasons, because 2011 I couldn't hear myself think. I had ear protection on, obviously, but I couldn't hear myself think. 2012, okay, cars are still loud, but I don't feel like my ears are in pain if I don't have something on. Like, you can walk to Indianapolis now during May, and you don't feel like you get a headache right when you walk underneath the tunnel. Like, that's what always happened to me, like in 2011 and years prior, was when I went there, it was like, all right, here comes a car, better close my ears first. Now I don't have to do that, because it doesn't hurt as much. You still obviously have to wear protection, but it's not nearly as painful. Yeah. And so I say that, and I know that's a weird thing to kind of bring up, but I think that is a very strong problem with some young fans, is they're not accustomed to the loud noises. They're just not. I mean, there's certain loud noises that, I'd love to hear again. If we could create an engine that sounded exactly like kart engines in 2000, I'd take it 100 times to 1. I'd 100% take that, but I just know that that's not going to happen. And so I think in order for motorsports to continue to be viable, in order for it to continue to, in order for automobile companies, because if automobile companies aren't investing in this, then we don't exist. So if they're going to invest in this to create technology that goes straight from the racetrack to the highway, we need to create a better avenue to do that. So we need to be able to create more powerful hybrid engines, and I think NASCAR is a perfect opportunity to do that. So, next question today. Yesterday, Jordan Bianchi of The Athletic released a story about the potential of an IndyCar-NASCAR doubleheader at Texas Motor Speedway. It is currently being pursued by Eddie Gossage and Doug Bowles of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway as well. Bianchi mentions that Bowles has thrown the famed facility into the ring as a road course oval combination event that may even serve as a triple header for IMSA, IndyCar, and NASCAR. Do you upshift or downshift on this idea, Josh?
With the Bulls, obviously I'm upshifting on an IndyCar, NASCAR doubleheader. That needs to happen, and I think it will happen. I think the pieces are on the table. You just got to put them in the correct order. For the triple header and what Bowles has proposed, I'm upshifting on that. I know that's and he mentioned this in the article Yankee did, and what Bowles. So the challenge is that you don't want to hurt the May product.
No, you can't do that.
You can't do that, and I don't think Bowles would go with a idea of doing a triple header or with IMSA, IndyCar, NASCAR, with IMSA and IndyCar running the road course, or just IndyCar and NASCAR, if it would hurt the May. I don't think he would do that at all. I think we just need to say that right now. But the willingness for him to say, hey, I'm willing to explore this, if IndyCar's on board, NASCAR's on board, and even IMSA's on board, I'm upshifting because I like the idea, and I like that Bulls has the cojones to kind of throw that out there, and that I'm upshifting even harder because he says NASCAR on the oval. The Cup Series needs to be on the oval. If the Xfinity Series wants to go on the road course, I'm okay with that.
Mm-hmm.
The Cup Series needs to stay on the oval. That's the way the Brickyard 400 needs to be run. Dare I say it? I can't believe these words are coming out of my mouth. But if we were to move to the road course, we just need to stay. NASCAR needs to leave Indianapolis. That's the way it needs to be. So upshifting for the idea that the willingness for him to say, I want to do this, because that'd be a huge weekend.
Oh, it would be.
Huge weekend. And that's, talking about more bang for your buck, people traveling in. You can introduce people to new series, NASCAR fans to IMSA and IndyCar, and the other two series to everyone else. So that'd be a great idea. I think there needs to be a little more collaboration within the motorsports industry in general on dual events, but more so than just, the Trans Am series, which gets virtually no exposure to, a NASCAR event. Like a Mid-Ohio, this upshifting now. I'm upshifting on the idea. I'm upshifting. I like it.
I think that's a fine way to go about it. I'm going to upshift on the idea as well, but I'm also going to shift into neutral for a couple of things. Mainly, the first thing is I love the idea of Eddie Gossage talking about it, because I think IndyCar, if IndyCar decided tomorrow, hey, our season finale race is now going to be at Texas again, and it's going to be with NASCAR weekend in the fall. All right. You just sold me. Now I'm officially, a big time. I'm a huge factor of that. I think that's the greatest idea on the face of the planet, because then you get IndyCar to race their season finale, which I think personally should be on an oval. Nobody wants to watch a season finale on a road course. And I've been saying this for a long time to IndyCar, that no matter, in Sonoma's a good track. Laguna Seca is not a good track for IndyCars. And I'll say that till the cows come home. Actually, and I'm serious, I'm telling our listeners, go back and watch the 2003 Champ Car race at Laguna Seca. It might be the worst race I've ever seen in my life. And actually, most people love Laguna Seca mainly because of the pass. Okay, that's the only memorable event that has happened in Laguna Seca ever. I can't think of another event at Laguna Seca that in any way, shape, or form came close to the pass. And even then, that was a controversial move that some people say was illegal, some people would say was cool, whatever. That's the only thing. Laguna Seca is not a good track for IndyCars. It's a fine track for motorbikes. It's a fine track for sports cars. But for IndyCars, no. You can't be... And not our season finale. Because where are you going to pass? How are you going to pass? The corkscrew? That's really going to be your passing zone? Come on. No, it needs to be on an oval. So I need IndyCar to say our season finale is going to be at Texas with NASCAR. That would be 100% fine for me. Then, shifting to the IMS thing, IMS needs to take a look at this and say, okay, well, when is it going to be? That's why I'm shifting into neutral for this one, because I'm not opposed to it. I'm not opposed to the idea. I know I might be considered a traditionalist by some, but I'm not inherently opposed to this idea, because typically, I would like to see, separate weekends for each. I would like to see, IndyCar does May, NASCAR does September, whatever. You get something in there in like June, July, whatever, like an IMSA race or something that you can run at night where it's not so cool. And when I say that, I say an IMSA race being run in maybe not necessarily at night, but towards the twilight. Would be, I like run it in the late afternoon. If you have to say, if you're going to do this and you're going to say run it on a Friday night, run it on Friday night. Run maybe a 6-hour race on Friday night and start it at, 3 o'clock. 3 o'clock so that it runs until 9. And that's in the summer. So you still have daylight in the summer at about 9 o'clock. The sun hasn't quite gone down yet, but you have wonderful opportunities but because those cars have headlights, people will be out there because it's cooler, things like that. I would prefer IMSA to come back to IndyCar, to IMS, either in a dual NASCAR weekend or just simply by itself. So I appreciate Doug Bowles, exploring the idea and talking about it, but I think personally it's something that only works if you add an extra IndyCar race to Indianapolis to IMS, and at that point I feel like it's overkill. At that point I feel like you're just saying, okay, IndyCar is only Indianapolis, we don't race anywhere else at this point. Then it's overkill. And you brought up before the show, maybe talking about a different configuration. I'm like, yeah, okay, let's run the inner loop or that little loop there instead. I mean, you could do that, but the whole reason they bypassed it was to make passing easier on the end of Holman Boulevard. Yeah. So, at that point, then it's kind of like...
Well, I think I was talking about, too, either any changes to the track and you add something or, I don't know. I can't think of a place or without looking at the satellite imagery and looking at how much space there is. But... I just give it an upshift because he's exploring the idea and he's willing,
I'm with you on that
about
one.
It.
I think it's great that he's exploring the idea.
Yeah.
I just think that the idea in itself needs a little bit more work before we go further with it.
And it kind of fits the whole Indianapolis mantra too. We are a true multi-purpose facility, and we're going to have multi-purpose weekend.
Yeah,
that would be interesting too.
Like, I'm not opposed to the idea, but like you said, I'm definitely a little bit skeptical about logistics and dates and how all that would work. So, let's see here. Our final upshift or downshift here before we move on to talk about IndyCar's duels in Detroit. Cole Custer picked up his third win of the year this past weekend at Pocono. Christopher Bell has 3 wins this year, 11 wins total and 53 starts. These guys could be in the Cup Series right now with Stewart Haas and Joe Gibbs Racing at some capacity if it wasn't for current team limitations. Should NASCAR consider eliminating the 4-team limit for organizations but retaining a 4-charter limit for teams? I'm going to go ahead and answer that first just for time because I talk too much and I want to get moving. First and foremost, the 4-car limit is stupid. Second of all, the charter system is stupid. So I think that should tell you all you need to know. I'm going to keep it short and sweet and to the point. Charter system is stupid. It was created as a way for Rob Kaufman to bail on Michael Waltrip without losing any of his money. It's literally a way for Rob Kaufman to ignore the fact that when you invest, you have a risk. When you invest in something, there's a risk that you could lose your money. Rob Kaufman just wasn't okay with this concept, so he decided when Michael Waltrip Racing went away that he needed to unionize the teams, basically come up with an idea that prevents him from losing money if a team goes under financially. And this was his way, that now you have a charter to sell and you can get back some of your money and all this stuff. Well, it's ended up producing Premium Motorsports and Rick Rowe Racing that end up putzing around at the end of the field and not even bothering to get any better. And not even attempting and running drivers like Joey Gase who don't even want to make their careers better because they take these crummy rides and everything. And that just looks bad for NASCAR. And that looks horrible for NASCAR. So I think charter system, do away with it. 4-car team limitations, do away with it, and I think things will go back to normal. So, what's your take?
Well, I think that was an upshift for you. I have shift on this. Look, you got to play within the current rules in a way. I don't know specifically when NASCAR could return to the idea of, okay, can we get rid of the charters? Obviously, it's not doing the way we want it to. I don't see Hendrick Motorsports or in the Hendrick family and Jeff Gordon or the Gibbs family or the Roush family getting rid of their teams at any time right now. So they could easily get rid of the 4-team limit and keep the 4-charter limit. So I'm going to upshift on that one because you can get if Gibbs could put Bell in a full funded car, yeah, he may not be guaranteed in, but he's got 5 cars running for a championship. I think he'd do it. If Hendrick could put another guy in, if Penske, theoretically they could, or Stewart Haas, with Cole Custer, yeah, do it. So upshift for me. I think the limit is crazy, and it doesn't allow for, like what we talked about earlier, getting that other guy in to see what he's doing and where's his development at. Test where his skills lie when put in a Cup race. And I think anyone who watches NASCAR knows that Bell and Custer, they may not be able to go up and win the Cup championship this year.
They will at some point.
And they could compete, and they would be good enough drivers to be relevant. So
if you have the financial funding, why can't you do it?
Exactly.
I mean, why are we firing drivers? Like Matt Kenseth shouldn't have lost his ride because sponsors wanted Eric Jones.
Gibbs could currently have 6 drivers in the Cup Series if he had the funding, sponsorship funding, to field 6 cars. That's
Right.
that's the reality of the situation.
I know
and
he would, and he
we're-
probably could. Yeah, easily.
I don't know why he wouldn't. So what are we talking about next?
All right, we're going to talk about the IndyCar duels in Detroit here briefly because we are about running out of time. Not necessarily. We still got about a half hour to talk, but we want to keep it short. So, IndyCar's duels in Detroit. Duel 1, Joseph Newgarden picked up his second win of the year and his 12th career win. Colton Hurd and Harding Steinbrenner Racing break their DNF streaks. Scott Dixon had his first DNF in 2 years, plus it was self-inflicted, plus Scott Dixon basically finished last, too, for the first time in for what felt like forever.
I don't remember the last time Dixon had a race like that.
It's like that time Jeff Gordon finished last and nobody knew what to do with themselves.
That was the first time he ever finished last.
Yeah, like
It's
nobody
crazy.
knew what to do with themselves. They're like, can this happen?
Yeah.
Can this actually happen? I saw that. I was like, can Scott Dixon
It was
finish
unconstitutional
last?
for it to happen.
Like, this is blasphemous. But
Yeah.
I thought the first race was a bit of a farce on my part because, first of all, Detroit's a hard track to pass on. You throw rain into the mix and you think, okay, maybe it might be a little bit better, but no, it's not. Because we go to a timed race, and then
I hate timed races.
I don't hate timed races as long as they're planned from the beginning.
Well,
When
yeah,
you're-
IMSA's fine. Yeah, but when you talk about, hey, we were scheduled 70 laps, you're running 70 laps, or you're running
Right.
to halfway. What's it going to be?
I mean, we're not doing what Champ Car used to do back when it was dying, and in order to fit into the TV windows, they would run timed races no matter what. Every race is a timed race, so much so that the last time Champ Car raced at Milwaukee in 2006, they made it a timed race, which was the most ridiculous thing in the entire world. Why would you make an oval race a timed race? Bad idea, bad idea. Thankfully, I don't think we're ever going to see that ever again, but NBC pushing the final, 15, 20 minutes of that race to CNBC was really bad.
Yeah.
Was really bad.
That's not going to do anything to help your ratings.
I mean, you've already got a bunch of people mad at you for making people buy the NBC Sports Gold Pass.
Mm-hmm.
Now you've got a bunch of people mad at you for the unbelievable amount of commercials and the more or less pretty bad broadcast of the Indy 500. So some people say.
And then a week later, you come out here and put it on CNBC. That's not good.
Yeah,
It's not
you put the end of a race on CNBC. It's not going to make people happy, especially when you promise that this race is going to be on network television, which was the main draw to all of this. Was people were so excited they were going to be able to see IndyCar races on network television more often, and then you go and pretty much say, "Yeah, we put a race on network television," but forget it. Local news is more important, which I get. I understand that, but the fact that you didn't even attempt to put it on NBCSN or something was kind of bothering me.
The good news is that the second duel is a little bit better.
The second duel was incredible. Scott Dixon picked up his win number 45. Important to remember that he won the first duel in Detroit last year, and that ended up being a championship run. He is now only 7 wins behind Mario Andretti and 22 behind AJ Foyt on the all-time wins list. I want to say also thanks for Josh for looking these up because I am a lazy butt and I would never look these up on my own time.
Thank you, NASCAR Media Guide.
Yeah,
or IndyCar Media Guide. Yeah, it's great.
But I wanted to say too that Dixon going from dead last in Duel 1 to winning on the second duel was
redemption.
Incredible.
What he called it.
Yeah, I mean it was. Marcus Ericsson, awesome race for Marcus. Oh, I'm so glad to say that fans of Marcus Ericsson. If you don't follow fans of Marcus Ericsson, you don't actually have to be a fan of Marcus Ericsson.
Yeah, just click the follow button on Twitter.
Just follow them on Twitter, and they're on Facebook. It's I think at fans of M Ericsson. It's great. I mean, you feel this guy. You feel this guy's passion and energy for Marcus Ericsson. It's so refreshing to see almost how passionate this guy is for Marcus Ericsson. And I followed it in Formula One last year, and it just felt like the most crushing thing in the world to see every post was awful start for Marcus, or awful strategy ruins awful race for Marcus, or something like that. And now all of a sudden the guy was flipping out, seeing we got a podium. I'm so excited.
Great. It was great.
Yeah, it was great for Marcus too, because I know he needed that, because I think Marcus Ericsson has had the speed, he's had the pace to perform in IndyCar. It's just that he's had some awful rotten luck, or he's made some rookie mistakes out there.
I think we'll talk about that a little bit later in our outstanding performance section.
Yes, we will. So it's good to see Marcus Ericsson go out there and do that. Will Power having the power move of the race to stay ahead of Takuma Sato and Ryan Hunter-Reay on the opening lap, following a pit stop.
That was an amazing move. I didn't think he was going to be able to pull it off.
Right. No, I thought so too.
You know, it was on cold tires, and what really helped him was that Ryan Race saw to get work a little bit around Takuma, but for him to hold off down the backstretch, I didn't think he could do it, and that was ultimately what led to him getting the podium.
And then, you know, speaking of that too, it's not on our show notes today, but we should make a note that what was James Hinchcliffe doing? I mean, he came out on cold tires, blocked Newgarden like it was no tomorrow. And I posted this on Twitter, too. I posted the same thing. This happened at Long Beach with Newgarden. Like, Newgarden came out on cold tires, blocked the whole field. Hunter Ray went to the inside, and Newgarden threw the block, and he wrecked, like, 5 cars. And now here we are, we did the same thing. Hinchcliffe threw the block on cold tires, Newgarden tried to get around him, and it ended up wrecking 3 cars.
I mean, you could argue that Power maybe wasn't in position either, and maybe should have given the position up, but his made it work,
yeah,
and it stuck, and no one wrecked. But obviously, one thing changes here or there, and we could have another wreck on our hands too.
I get that it's hard to pass on Detroit, so that's probably why Hinchcliffe did what he did, because he had to defend the position. But at the same time, dude, you're on cold tires. The leaders are coming up on you. They're about a second and a half faster than you.
That was a little bit more of a bigger block too.
That's it. Why are we doing this? Why are we doing that? I thought that was a dumb move.
Yeah.
Rosenquist has to stop crashing. Yes, he does. I want to make a quick note here to Chip Ganassi. Just never forget that you did fire 3 great drivers, and you can't seem to put a good one in the 10. Not to take anything away from Ed Jones and Felix Rosenquist, but definitely there's whoever he puts in that 10 car has now officially been snake bitten.
Yeah.
No matter what, no matter how good they are.
Change the number.
No matter how good they are, they're snake bitten.
Yeah.
Santino Ferrucci finished 10th, but led 20 laps. I guess. I mean,
the guy, I don't think he came out nowhere in a way, and he had a great race at Indianapolis, and then now he was able to hold off on not the best tires.
I mean, I feel like talking about Santino Ferrucci is an interesting is like the popular thing to do. I don't like to give him a lot of. I don't really think he needs any more airtime than he gets, because I still haven't yet to hear a legitimate defense or apology or anything like that for Silverstone last year. His subsequent events, I mean, he hasn't even acknowledged it. Nobody's asked him about it. I haven't seen like a sit-down interview, 30 for 30 style, 60-minute style, I should say, about him explaining this. All I've ever gotten is, I'm a hothead from Connecticut, and I screwed up. Like, why not just, like that's not owning up to it. That's, like, taking an easy way. And it wasn't even done in, like, person. It wasn't done to, like, a media. It wasn't done to, like, person. It was just on Twitter. And you know what else he said on Twitter? He posted a video of Arjun Maini crying and mocked him while doing it. And I'm sorry, that just hasn't sat well with me ever since. I've just, I don't care about, a lot of people talk about the political thing that he did too. That doesn't bother me as much as I think it bothers other people, because I don't care about politics. I'm a political nihilist. It doesn't matter to me. But I see certain other things that he did, and it's just like, why are we? I mean, yeah, guy's talented. Guy makes great runs. Guy runs really well, but we're still giving this guy so many airtime and not addressing the elephant in the room. It's time to address the elephant in the room. It's time for NBC to address the elephant in the room. If they're going to keep talking about Ferrucci ad nauseum, they need to start asking questions. You should probably address this, because the only way you're going to get more fans, because I've only heard good things about him from the IndyCar paddock. So I need, if only good things are being said about him in the IndyCar paddock, as if like he's changed his ways, as he's this good guy, which I don't doubt that he can. If you screw up, you get a pretty hard reality check that, hey, you screwed up. I don't think he's still like this, but I still have yet to see any indication that, he's aware that this happened and he wants to apologize for it. I still have not seen a public apology for that. I've not seen a public apology from his father. I haven't seen, because his father was allegedly doing the same thing. He was mocking Arjun Maini frequently. And I want to get that out of the way, because I think it needs to be talked about. It needs to be discussed, and if it's going to be discussed on this podcast, it's going to be discussed on this podcast, because we need to talk about this elephant in the room of Santino Ferrucci. So that's all I'm going to say on that. Congratulations to him. We're leading 20 laps. He's done really, 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 really well. Congratulations, but I'm just going to leave it at that. All right. I'm going to leave it at that. That's how I feel about Santino Ferrucci. But let's move on to, and I know there was one thing here about something, but I'm going to cut it for time. Outstanding performance of the weekend. Josh, who is your outstanding performance of the weekend?
Marcus Ericsson.
Okay.
And just because this guy needed a pick-me-up.
He did, definitely.
He had his last 4 races prior to this were 20th at Long Beach, 24th in the Indy GP, and 23rd in the 500. In the 500, he would have had a really big pick-me-up because he was running really well, and then he made a mistake on pit road. It happens, But and he got 13th in the first GP. But it has to feel good. It makes me feel good.
Yeah.
If I'm sitting there, caution flies, I'm in second place, and I'm thinking, I got a champion behind me.
Mm-hmm.
Guy's won the 500. And I got another champion, a 5-time champion in front of me, and he's won the 500. I have a chance to get a podium and stand in between these guys. So he did an excellent job holding off Will Power, not once but twice.
Yes,
on a
definitely.
restart.
Yes.
Sam Schmidt, they interviewed Sam Schmidt, and he was like, we probably would have been content with, just running second and finishing out the race and not having a caution and having another shot, theoretically, at the win. Dixon had a great car.
Oh, absolutely.
But the thing that was even better was that Ericsson drove away from Power.
He did.
He had a second half behind Dixon, and he had a second half lead on Power. So that was awesome for him. The big pickup for the team. Sam Schmidt has not had the results that they wanted this year. I think
winning the pit stop competition was the highlight of the year.
Yeah, and I think
far.
The good news is I think both teams only have one DNF.
Yeah,
I believe, but the results haven't been superb, and they haven't got podium. So to see Marcus get that was really good, and a guy who is really I think he's likable. I've talked to him a few times.
Marcus
I enjoy
is
talking to him.
He's very likable. Yeah, I think a lot of people really like Marcus. I think he's great for IndyCar. Formula One doesn't know what they're missing. Ferrari didn't know what they're missing. I mean, be honest with you. This guy's got backing, and the guy's got speed and talent. So, I mean, but Formula One is a bit of a dog-eat-dog world. So, my outstanding performance, though, of the day is going to be given to 2 drivers from duel number 2. Marco Andretti started very much close towards the back, and he finished 6th, I believe, which was an incredible feat on a track that you really can't pass very much on.
And I think he is the second top 10 of the year.
Yeah, so great drive for Marco there. It's not a top 5, it's not a win, but for Marco and someone like that to know that you have the ability in the car to drive up through the field. And I mean, I think that shows more about Marco's ability than really the car, because even if the car is terrible, the fact that Marco is still able to drive, because people like to punch. Marco is an easy punching bag, right? He's such an easy punch. Yeah, you've won 2 races. You run well at Indy, but you'll never win it because your name's Andretti. Things like that. It's such an easy punching bag. But I think we forget that Marco is still just a good driver. I mean, he might not be the best, but he's still a solid driver. He's not going to be his grandpa or his dad, but he doesn't have to be. He just has to be Marco. And I think to see something go like that was really, really positive for him. And then my second most outstanding performance of the day is going to go to Sebastian Bourdais in Duel Race 2 for pretty much doing a wheelie after having contact with Spencer Pigot.
That was a scary moment.
And then finishing 8th. Didn't get down on himself, didn't do anything, just replaced the front wing. Dale Coyne was just, all right, go out there, Seb, and do it. And Bourdais proved why Bourdais proved why he's won 4 championships and why he's got Formula One starts under his belt. I mean, he's simply one of the best drivers on the paddock right now, and I'll say that hands down. So it was a very impressive run for the 18 car of Sebastian Bourdais. So let's move on to our second to last topic of the day, which will be their featured track, which is Trenton Speedway. One of my personal favorite tracks, the Kidney Bean. Very much I miss it. I'm going to go down. I know, Josh, you drew this up here real quick, so if you want to interject anything, just stop, let me know. So Trenton Speedway started out as a half-mile dirt oval. The first race in 1900 at the New Jersey State Fairgrounds. The next race would not be held until 1907, and again waited for another race until 1912. So, this is, again...
Early primitive years of just automobiles.
Yes.
So to have one in 1900, that had to be something to see.
Oh, I'm sure. Racing was interrupted for World War II, and in 1946, the track reopened as a mile dirt oval and was in a slightly different position from the preceding half-mile dirt oval. This left grandstands with an odd, unusual line of sight. The mile dirt oval was paved in 1957, and then the famous 1.5-mile kidney bean-shaped course came in 1968, and the shape was caused by a landowner who wouldn't sell his land to make the track a full oval.
It was a old lady who just would not sell.
It wouldn't sell it, and but it made one of the most...
But it made later you go back and thank you.
Thank you for not selling this land, because we've got probably one of the coolest tracks ever.
Mm-hmm.
This shape caused headaches for engineers who tried to get tires to last. NASCAR. Wait, go ahead.
Taking a right turn, and the tires are designed to go left, and just overall, I think that's part of that innovation and who can be the best car that day. You got to make one right turn, have to, and
could you imagine doing that in a modern IndyCar or something?
I would love to see if someone were to come to me. What track design would you want me to build? Yeah. I'm like, Trenton. It's easy.
It's hard to beat either Trenton, I think, or Nazareth when it comes to classic designs of track, because those are ovals, but they're not.
And they did 2 of our 3 feature tracks.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So I love that. So Trenton was very interesting, and I said that what would it be like for modern IndyCars to race on that, because I just think about you said that what would be like turning right. Imagine coming off turn 2 and quickly having to adjust your weight jacker just to get into turn 3, just to get into the kidney bean, and then having to adjust it back to get into turn 3. That would just be incredible.
New position switch location.
Right, exactly. NASCAR races on the 1-mile paved oval from 1958 to 1959, and again in 1967 and 1968, and they continued racing from 1969 through 1972. They dropped the race from the schedule when the New Jersey crowds didn't show. Richard Petty was NASCAR's only repeat winner at Trenton with 3 victories. AAA, USAC, and CART had a much richer history. They raced USAC primarily sanctioned races with the AAA before AAA got out of it in the 50s after the Le Mans disaster from 1949 to 1978, and CART took over sanctioning when the split from USAC happened in 1979. A single race was held on the Dirt Mile Oval in 1949 before returning in 1957, where at least one race was held at Trenton Speedway until 1979. From 1962 to 1965 and 1973 to 1974, and finally in 1979, 3 races were held at the track.
That was some of those years there was double headers.
Yes, I remember that.
So you had double header weekend, and then you had a longer race.
I shouldn't say I remember that. I was not born at this time, but I do remember looking up vintage videos of the stats. Yeah. AJ Foyt won the race 12 times at Trenton in 41 starts. Bobby Unser and Mario Andretti each have 7 victories at Trenton. The track has had no major series racing in 1980 after a final modified race was won by Jeff Bodine that June. The track officially closed. The land part of the New Jersey State Fairgrounds was sold and developed. A UPS facility and an international sculpture center occupy the ground where Trenton Speedway once stood. If you go to historicalaerials.com and search for 4 Fairground Road in Trenton, New Jersey, you can see historical aerial images of the Speedway, including a really clear image in 1979.
That's an awesome site. Just for anything, by the way, historicalaerials.com is a awesome place. Okay, I like to go and look at like LA, the 40s, and compare it to now. It's crazy, but that 1979 image, I appreciate it so much because it is such a clear what the kidney bean shape and what the facility looked like. Sometimes you get particularly even in the 70s, that recent of an image will be sometimes blurry, but this one was very clear. So if you want to look at more than just a diagram, a track diagram of what Trenton looked like, historicaerials.com, type in 4 Fairgrounds Road, Trenton, New Jersey, in the search box, and you can see some pretty cool stuff across the United States, not just in New Jersey there.
I think I've got something that's going to preoccupy a lot of my time from now on.
Yeah.
All that wasted time that you spend downtime.
Yep.
That's what I'm going to be doing right now. So, Let's see here. Today's featured track was brought to you by RacingReference.info, RacingCircuits.info, and the History of America's Speedway Past and Present by Alan E. Brown. Now let's shift on in our final 10 minutes of the podcast to What's in the Windshield. We've got one of my favorite Formula One events coming up, which is the Canadian Grand Prix this Sunday at Circuit Gilles Villeneuve, which is, this is probably one of my second favorite weekends of the week, of the year. And I'll go into that a little bit later. But IndyCar visits Texas, my second favorite IndyCar race, my favorite IndyCar race that's not Indianapolis. We do have some breaking news to state on that. On Texas for this upcoming weekend, Max Chilton will not be in the car. He is elected to forego running ovals until next year when the advanced frontal protection cockpit comes around. That was actually just broke this morning, so Connor Daly will be in Max's car for this weekend at Texas. So, and then further, we've got NASCAR and Cup and Xfinity in Michigan, which I think will be a pretty decent race. I think Michigan is a good track. It's a great fun track. I've been there many times. I'd love to see a NASCAR race there sometime. I'm hoping to maybe this for the second race of the season. I'm hoping to maybe have a chance to get up there. So let's talk about our predictions. So I want to go ahead and start with the Formula One predictions. What are your predictions for Formula One outside of Mercedes? What do you think?
Outside of Mercedes?
Mercedes is going to win, but who do you what else do you think is going to happen? Do you think it's going to be a pretty good race, or do you think it's going to be?
I think the midfielders are usually pretty good, decent in Formula One. But I'm going to be paying attention to Haas.
Mm-hmm.
And some of the changes they've made, and see if they can start get things going, and see if they can become that fourth team in the midfield. Ferrari's talked about maybe they'll be a little bit better and a little bit stronger. This track will more suit them. I'll see if Mercedes can get another 1-2 going. Is another thing I'm going to look at as well. I think Hamilton will win.
Mm-hmm.
I think Bottas won't finish second, though.
Oh, okay,
so
okay. There we go.
That's the way I'm looking at this. So I'm paying attention to Haas. Can Ferrari put two races together, with both their drivers? And where does Bottas finish?
All right, that's a fair deal. I like to be a little bit more positive and hope that Vettel and Ferrari will do something well. But hey, I just love being able to watch a Formula One race not in the morning.
That's true. That's fair.
So
That's fair.
I'm 100% down with this, and especially when you've got IndyCar racing at Texas the night before, and there's no real, Formula 2 or Formula 3 races going on that I've got to watch either. So, second race, obviously, being IndyCar. Josh, you've got some predictions on this. What are yours?
I'm listing this really basically solely off the past two seasons with this car.
Mm-hmm.
And the four oval races, the fast oval races with Ed. The two at Indy, one at Texas, one at Pocono. Alexander Rossi has a fourth in last year's Indy 500, third last year at Texas, one last year at Pocono, and obviously finished second in the Indy 500 this year. I'm going to predict him. I predict him this past weekend, and I think he would have another shot at a couple different things as well.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm going with him again at Texas. He's got this oval thing down.
Yes,
and so I'm going to continue to ride with him on this one.
All right, I think that's a very good position to go with. I think Texas is a very difficult track to make a prediction on because so many different factors can happen. Yeah. My prediction is that I think Texas will be unpredictable again. Last year, I think we saw a really good race with this car. It was definitely no. It was no 2017, but it was still a pretty good race. So I was overall pretty happy with it. So. Moving on to NASCAR Cup and Xfinity predictions. Let's just do NASCAR Cup predictions for right now. What do you think, Josh? Who do you think is going to get the win on Sunday?
Well, I don't think a Toyota is going to go in victory lane. It's been a while since they've been there. And I like what Kyle Larson's doing recently. Yeah, the past two races, he was running sixth, passing for fifth, I believe it was, on Clint Boyer. Kind of wrecked his car and ruined his day, finished 26th, had a 30th place finish in Charlotte after he wrecked there. But his cars were running good those races. In the previous two races of that, he had top 10s. Just like we mentioned earlier, Chevrolet is turning things around. That includes Chip Ganassi Racing. Larson has 5 career Cup wins. 3 of them are at Michigan. And I think with being flat, having to maybe probably stay flat out all the way around Michigan in the Cup Series, I think that's going to suit him. So I'm going to go with Larson. He's going to end his winless streak, and he's going to put Ganassi back in victory lane.
I think it's going to be a Penske Ford. I think Brad Keselowski is going to do it. And the main reason I say that is because it's Penske's backyard. It's Penske's track. I think he knows this probably better than anybody. And Keselowski's been traditionally pretty good at Michigan. So I think, depending on where he qualifies, if he qualifies pretty well, I think it's a pretty good conclusion that Brad Keselowski's got a good shot at probably winning this race. So that's pretty good. So that's a pretty good way to end this episode of the Racing with Rob and Roller podcast. We hope you enjoyed today's show and continue to listen each week. We will have a new... Thank you for listening. Obviously, our hope is to post this on a new service rather than SoundCloud, because I found out SoundCloud makes you pay a lot of money in order to host podcasts. So I'm not going to do that. We're going to look for something else. So thank you for following us over to this new service. So in the next episode, we will discuss NASCAR weekend at Michigan, the IndyCar race at Texas, and we will also discuss the double open weekend with both the Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series and the NTT IndyCar Series both being off. And should IndyCar has scheduled Texas for that weekend, tune in next week to see what we think and see what other news comes out of that weekend. So again, thank you for listening to this episode of the Racing with Rob and Roller podcast, and we will see you again next week.